I heard that some users of the English language find it difficult to put sentences like this together. And that's because they find it confusing to determine which verb to put in constructions like this. Now, whether you're a student yourself, you're a teacher, a writer, a public speaker, and you've been trying as much as you can to understand or to unravel how to overcome this challenge, please come closer and let's figure things out together. Let's get to the class. The first sentence here says, stories like this dash mythical. Stories like this dash mythical. And you have two options to choose from. The first option is are, the next is. The first option is are, the second is. The second sentence says, stories like these dash mythical. Stories like these dash mythical. And the same options to choose from. The first is or, and then you have is. Now, to appropriately determine the verb that will sit in the spaces, in these two spaces, you need to focus, you need to pay attention to something really important. First of all, this and this. Now, you notice that if you take out these two words from these two sentences, you notice that both sentences are the same words making them up. Here stories, here stories, here you have like, here you have like. Of course, the spaces, and then you have mythical, right? So these two pronouns are the two different options in these two sentences. And that is where the confusion stems from almost every time. So let's start with the first. Stories like this dash mythical. Think of this. Okay, first of all, you notice that these stories is a plural subject. Plural, right? This is plural. Well, this is what? Okay, a singular noun phrase. This is a singular noun phrase. And this noun phrase is realized by this singular pronoun. Right, this is a pronoun actually. Now, this right here is a noun phrase with the head word structure. The head word structure. A noun phrase with the head word structure is simply a noun phrase that is made up of just a single word. So you have this, right? This is a noun phrase also by plural, also head word structure. This is also a noun phrase realized by a pronoun. And of course, the structure is the head word structure. Okay, but this is singular, right? Well, this is plural. The same structure. A noun phrase with a head word structure. Head word structure. This is plural. This is plural. Okay. So this is singular and this is plural. Right. Now, between this and this one, which will determine the verb to sit in this place? Now, before we get to that, I need you to do something real quick. Try as much as you can to change this noun phrase here to a noun phrase with the MH structure. By so doing, you would have introduced a concrete noun, a major noun, a real noun, after this. So what I'm trying to say is you should introduce another noun after this one, such that this becomes the modifier or an adjective to another. So in other words, the noun phrase here will become the MH structure. So let's try to introduce our concrete nouns into the structure. For example, let's say children. Now, we're changing these stories, we're replacing stories with children. These stories, we're replacing this with this, right? Children, right? Like this, dash mythical. Try to introduce a similar subject like this to this place, right? Now, children like this child, like this. So here you have this child, dash mythical. So these are parallel constructions. Children like this child, dash mythical. Now, this here is the same as what is here, but in other words, we're just swallowing this child automatically here, right? Nothing has changed here except that I introduced another noun phrase, okay? So altogether, what you have here, this child is what you have here. This is metaphorical of this. This is replacing this, and this child is the same thing as this. Are we clear with that? So now, if you know that this child is a singular noun, and this is a plural noun. Children like this child dash mythical. With this understanding, you notice that this is the reference. Here, you have the reference. This is the reference, right? While this is the focus. What you have here is the focus. Now, in this type of construction, the reference doesn't determine the verb to use. Rather, it is the focus that determines the verb to use. So let's make this more practical. Say, children like this child, all the children in the world, like this very child, are mythical. Do you understand what you say? Cars that look like this one. Cars, girls, animals, people who look like this child are mythical. So it is this focus that determines what is here. So if you clean everything here, this reference, okay. Sorry, a minute, please. So if you bring that understanding back to this place, right? Stories like this dash mythical. This is the reference here. This is the reference, while this is the focus. And I said it is the focus that determines what is here. Their attention is not here. This is just the reference. You've seen a bad boy, you've seen something bad or something interesting, and you're saying, oh, every other thing that looks like this one, dash, dash, dash. So the focus is here. It doesn't matter whether this is singular or plural. All that matters is the nature of what is here. If this is plural, then your verb has to be plural. So stories like this one I'm reading. Say, for example, I'm reading a story. Say, for example, I'm reading a story and I'm saying, oh, this is interesting. This is very interesting. Stories like this one I'm reading, stories like this one I'm reading are mythical. So that's why the first option is the right answer, is the right verb to use there. So please don't be afraid to make constructions like this. Stories like this one in my hand, this story. Stories, many other stories like this one are mythical. So let's come to the second sentence. Stories like these dash mythical. Stories like this dash mythical. Remember, this is the reference, okay? Just like we have here, just like we have there, reference. And then here you have the what? The focus, right? And don't forget that it's the focus that determines what is here. It doesn't matter whether this is plural or whether this is singular. Now imagine this, picture this like you have many stories or more. Sorry, let's have, give a second, please. Say you have two stories, you're reading two stories, and you're saying, oh, stories like these, I've read this too. These two stories, I've read them, and I'm saying, okay, stories like these two, these, plural, these two, stories like these, what's the focus? Stories, right? And what I have in my hands, these two are the references or the reference. I'll be clear. The reference don't determine the answer here, rather it's what you have here. So it doesn't matter whether this is plural or singular. The answer here, the verb here is determined by what you have here. So stories like this two I'm reading right now are mythical. I'll be clear with that. So the right answer here is still are and not is. Stories like these, stories like these two, like these three, cars like these cars I'm seeing right now, people like these boys, human beings like you two, you three, you four people, people like you are mythical. Do you understand that? If this is a singular subject, then the answer here becomes a singular verb. If this is plural, this is going to be plural, regardless of what you have here, whether it's plural or singular. So that's basically how to correctly put sentences like this together without having confusion as to what verb to put in these spaces. That's basically for this class, and I hope you've learned something maybe something useful. If you have, don't forget to do the like, share to as many people who you think will need content like this. And remember to keep speaking right and keep learning right. See you next time. Bye for now.